If you're waiting for people to validate your worth, you'll wait your entire life, because the moment you give someone the power to define you, you also give them the power to diminish you. Too many of us were taught to measure our value through the eyes of others, through how much we are liked, praised, or accepted. But approval is fragile. It shifts with moods, with opinions, with trends. And if you build your self-worth on something that unstable, you will always find yourself chasing after something that can never truly be caught. The truth is, the world will never unanimously agree on who you are. You will always be too bold for some, too quiet for others, too much or not enough. And that's okay. You were never meant to fit into every space. You were meant to create your own. There's a quiet danger in seeking approval, because slowly, almost without noticing, you begin to trade authenticity for acceptance. You start editing your words, shrinking your ideas, muting your presence just to blend in. You start molding yourself into a version that feels safer, easier for others to handle. And yet, with every compromise, you lose a piece of who you truly are. That is how confidence erodes, not all at once, but bit by bit, every time you silence yourself for the comfort of others. But the women who make an impact, the ones who truly lead, they've learned that approval is a trap. They understand that real respect doesn't come from being agreeable. It comes from being grounded. When you know who you are, you no longer chase validation. You embody it. Your presence becomes your statement. You don't need to prove your worth. You show it through consistency, through integrity, through how you carry yourself when no one is watching. Approval is something the world gives you when it suits them. But power, real internal power, is something you claim. It's when you decide, I no longer need to be liked to feel valuable. It's when you stop performing for the applause and start living from conviction. That's the moment everything shifts. Because when your self-worth comes from within, no criticism can break you and no praise can control you. The truth about approval is this: it's never about them. It's always about you, and how much you're willing to trade for a moment of validation. You can either spend your life seeking permission to be powerful, or you can stand in your strength and let your work, your discipline, your energy speak for you. The choice is always yours. Approval fades, impact endures. And the women who understand that truth don't ask to be seen, they walk in a way that cannot be ignored. There's a quiet kind of strength in a woman who knows who she is. It's not loud. It's not performative. It's a steady, grounded energy that doesn't need to announce itself to be felt. You can sense it when she walks into a room, not because she demands attention, but because her presence commands it. There's no desperation in her tone, no need to prove her worth or justify her place. She simply exists in alignment with her truth, and that alone makes people take notice. That's what self-respect feels like. Not ego, not arrogance, but certainty. The kind that doesn't need external confirmation to feel valid. You see, confidence that depends on approval will always crumble the moment it's challenged. But self-respect, that's different. It's the anchor that holds you steady when opinions shift like the wind. It's built from the quiet decisions you make when no one is watching, the discipline to follow through, the integrity to do what's right even when it's hard, the courage to say no when your boundaries are tested. Self-respect is not about being liked. It's about being honest with yourself. It's the voice inside you that says, I don't need to explain my worth. I know it. Every strong woman has a moment in her life where she realizes that trying to please everyone is exhausting and fruitless. That moment when she finally understands that her peace, her values, and her time are not up for negotiation. It's a shift from seeking validation to living from conviction. And once you make that shift, you stop trying to fit into rooms that require you to shrink. You stop apologizing for being ambitious, intelligent, direct, or different, because you recognize that your uniqueness is not something to tone down. It's the very thing that sets you apart. Self-respect is not built overnight. It's forged through experience, through disappointment, through the times you said yes when you should have said no, through learning the hard way that boundaries don't make you cold, they make you clear. And clarity is power. When you know what you stand for, you stop allowing people to walk over you. You stop being easily swayed by opinions or flattery. You learn to listen without absorbing, to care without compromising yourself, to empathize without losing your own voice. Strong women understand that respect is earned not through words, but through consistency, through how you carry yourself every single day. It's in how you treat others when you have nothing to gain. It's in how you keep your composure under pressure. It's in how you hold yourself accountable when things go wrong. Because true strength isn't about being unshakable. It's about being self-aware, knowing your weaknesses but refusing to let them define you. There's something magnetic about a woman who doesn't chase validation. People can sense it. They may not always understand it, but they respect it. Because she's not performing to be seen, she's focused on being excellent. She's disciplined in how she speaks, how she reacts, and what she gives her energy to. She doesn't entertain gossip, drama, or negativity. She protects her peace like it's sacred, because it is. That's not arrogance. That's emotional intelligence. She knows that her power lies in her restraint, in her ability to choose what deserves her attention. You don't gain respect by talking louder. You gain it by acting with purpose, by being dependable, by keeping your word, by mastering yourself before trying to lead anyone else. That's what sets strong women apart, their consistency. The way they show up the same way, every day, regardless of who's watching. They don't do it for recognition. They do it because that's who they are. And let's be honest, self-respect often means disappointing people. It means you'll be misunderstood, even criticized, for choosing yourself. But that's okay, because people who are used to your compliance will always see your boundaries as resistance. They'll try to make you feel guilty for not bending anymore. They'll say you've changed, and you have. You've grown. You've stopped settling for crumbs of validation and started demanding the fullness of your own worth. That's what growth looks like. Uncomfortable, but necessary. There will be moments when you'll question yourself, when the world tells you you're being too much, too assertive, too independent. But remember, those words are often spoken by those who benefit from your silence. Never dim your strength to make someone else feel secure. Never apologize for knowing your value. You owe no one an explanation for your self-respect. When you embody self-respect, you naturally attract a different kind of energy. People treat you differently because you teach them how to. You no longer tolerate what disrespects your boundaries. You no longer chase what isn't aligned. You learn to walk away without drama, without noise, because walking away is not weakness, it's wisdom. You've learned that not every battle is worth your energy, and not every person deserves your access. The most powerful women I've seen aren't the loudest in the room. They're the calmest. They don't need to assert dominance because their confidence does that for them. They don't need to prove their point in every conversation because their presence already communicates authority. There's something deeply commanding about composure, about not reacting, not rushing to defend, not needing to convince anyone of your worth. That's the energy of self-respect. It's quiet, but unbreakable. And that's why strong women often walk alone for a while. Because once you stop living for approval, the noise of the world fades. You stop needing validation, and instead, you focus on impact. You spend your time learning, growing, building, not seeking attention, but cultivating depth. You understand that your worth isn't tied to who notices you, but to what you bring to the table. You don't compete, you collaborate. You don't chase, you create. You don't cling, you let go. Because the more you respect yourself, the more you realize that losing people who don't value you isn't a loss, it's alignment. Self-respect also means holding yourself to a higher standard. It's not just about how others treat you, it's about how you treat yourself, what you allow, what you tolerate, and what you demand from your own life. Do you keep your promises to yourself? Do you show up when it's uncomfortable? Do you follow through on what you said you would do even when no one's watching? That's where self-respect is built, in the quiet discipline of daily decisions. The small acts that no one claps for, but that shape your character. And the more you cultivate that inner standard, the less external noise can touch you. You stop explaining your decisions to people who will never understand your path. You stop overcompensating for those who underestimate you, because your energy is sacred. And you finally realize not everyone deserves access to it. That's not pride, that's protection. Every time you choose peace over people-pleasing, every time you hold your ground when it's easier to fold, every time you prioritize growth over comfort, you strengthen your self-respect. And that energy, that unshakable foundation, becomes your greatest armor. It shields you from manipulation, from doubt, from the constant need to prove yourself. Because when you know who you are, no one can tell you who you're not. Self-respect isn't about perfection. It's about alignment. It's the decision to live by your principles, not your fears. It's the courage to walk away from what doesn't serve you, and the humility to admit when you're wrong. It's balance. Grace with grit, empathy with boundaries, kindness with strength. It's the energy that makes people trust you, follow you, and respect you, even if they don't always agree with you. Because people don't follow titles or appearances. They follow authenticity. And that's what every strong woman radiates: authenticity. She doesn't fake confidence. She builds it through integrity. She doesn't demand respect. She earns it by living it. And when you carry that kind of self-respect, you stop chasing the illusion of approval because you've already become the embodiment of your own validation. Every woman, at some point in her life, has felt the subtle pressure to please, to nod when she wants to object, to smile when she feels disrespected, to stay quiet just to keep the peace. From childhood, many are taught to be agreeable, to avoid conflict, to make others comfortable, to soften their edges. But what no one tells you is that this constant need to please becomes a prison. You begin to measure your worth by how little friction you cause, by how often you're told, "You're so nice," or "You're easy to work with." And without realizing it, you start to disappear. Not because you're weak, but because you've been conditioned to believe that being invisible is safer than being powerful. But the truth is, every time you silence yourself to make someone else comfortable, you dim your own strength. Every time you settle for less than you deserve just to keep the peace, you teach the world that your boundaries are negotiable. You begin to mistake compliance for kindness, when in reality, true kindness doesn't require you to betray yourself. The women who create real impact understand this difference. They know that peacekeeping is not the same as peace building. They are not afraid of being disliked if it means being true to themselves. Think about the women in history who changed the world. They didn't ask for permission to be bold. Rosa Parks didn't stand up that day because she wanted attention. She stood up because she was done sitting down for injustice. Approval wasn't her motive. Conviction was. And because of that, her single act of defiance sparked a movement. That's what happens when a woman decides to stop seeking approval and start standing in truth. Her courage gives others permission to do the same. Consider Malala Yousafzai. As a young girl, she chose to speak out when silence would have been safer. She was told to stay quiet, to be invisible, to obey, but she refused. Her bravery wasn't rooted in anger. It was rooted in purpose. She understood that staying silent to be liked was far more dangerous than speaking up and risking criticism. She didn't fight for applause. She fought for education, for freedom, for every girl who had been told her voice didn't matter. That's the essence of impact. It's not about being celebrated, it's about being significant. But not every story of impact has to be on a global scale. Sometimes it's the quiet decisions that shift the world around you. Like the woman who chooses to walk away from a toxic relationship instead of staying to be seen as loyal. Like the professional who speaks up in a meeting after years of holding back her ideas. Like the mother who teaches her daughter that saying no doesn't make her rude. It makes her clear. These are moments of power, small acts of courage that echo far beyond the moment. Because impact doesn't always make headlines. Sometimes it happens in silence, in integrity, in the choices that protect your peace and uphold your worth. Strong women know that living for approval keeps you small. It keeps you in a loop of second-guessing yourself, replaying conversations, wondering if you said too much, if you were too assertive, too emotional, too confident. But impact requires you to step beyond that fear, to accept that not everyone will like you, and that's okay. Because being respected is far more powerful than being liked. Approval feeds the ego. Impact feeds the soul. There's a pattern that runs through every impactful woman's life. She reaches a point where she stops negotiating her values. She stops explaining why she makes the choices she does. She stops apologizing for her standards. Instead, she starts moving with intention. She learns that not everyone deserves access to her energy. She learns to differentiate between those who clap for her out of love and those who clap just to be seen. That kind of discernment only comes when you've built enough self-respect to choose solitude over shallow validation. One of the most important lessons about impact is that it often comes with isolation. When you break away from people-pleasing, you disrupt the dynamics that once defined you. People who benefited from your compliance may call you selfish. They might say you've changed, and you have. Growth always feels like rebellion to those who profit from your silence. But here's what's crucial to remember. Staying true to yourself isn't defiance, it's alignment. It's you honoring your own integrity. And that alignment is what creates influence, the kind that lasts. Impactful women are not driven by the need to be right, they're driven by the need to be real. They understand that authenticity builds trust, and trust builds legacy. They don't manipulate people into liking them. They lead with consistency, honesty, and strength. You can't fake that kind of energy. You can't copy it. It's built through years of choosing principle over popularity. Think of the woman who quietly mentors others, lifting them up without seeking recognition. She doesn't broadcast her kindness. She lives it. Her impact is subtle but profound. Or the leader who refuses to compromise her ethics even when it costs her opportunities. She may lose the spotlight, but she gains something greater: self-respect. That's the kind of power that doesn't fade when the applause stops. Approval seeks comfort. Impact seeks growth. Approval asks, will they like me? Impact asks, will this make a difference? Approval looks outward for validation. Impact looks inward for purpose. And that's why the women who focus on impact always rise higher, not because the world made it easy for them, but because they stopped needing the world's permission to rise. There's a calm power in a woman who no longer performs for others. She moves with quiet confidence, knowing her actions speak louder than any praise she could receive. She doesn't need to prove she's enough. She already knows it. And that assurance frees her. She's not competing, she's contributing. She's not hustling for attention. She's building something meaningful. And when you live like that, and with integrity, focus, and self-respect, you start to notice a shift. The same people who once underestimated you begin to take notice. The same ones who dismissed you start to mirror your strength. Because impact isn't about forcing people to see your worth, it's about embodying it so powerfully that they can't deny it. You teach through example, not explanation. You influence not by demanding respect, but by commanding it through the way you live. Impact also requires emotional control. It's easy to react, to defend, to prove a point. But strong women know that restraint is a sign of mastery. They pick their battles wisely. They understand that not every opinion deserves a response. They choose their silence intentionally because silence, when used with purpose, is louder than noise. They know that every reaction spends energy, and impact requires conserving it for what truly matters. And perhaps the most beautiful thing about choosing impact over approval is this: you start living from truth, not fear. You stop being driven by how you're perceived and start being guided by what you believe. You stop waiting for permission and start giving yourself authority. You stop conforming and you start transforming. The lesson is simple, but powerful. When you stop seeking to be liked, you make space to be respected. When you stop performing for validation, you create room for authenticity. And when you stop trying to be accepted by everyone, you open the door to influencing those who truly matter. Every woman has the capacity to create that kind of impact, not through perfection, but through purpose, through showing up as herself unapologetically and consistently, through understanding that her value isn't determined by how others see her, but by how she sees herself. And when that shift happens, when approval no longer dictates your decisions, you become unshakable. Because impact is born the moment you choose to live for something greater than being liked. It's when your mission becomes louder than your insecurities, when your discipline outweighs your doubt, and when your purpose becomes your compass. That's where true influence begins. Not in the pursuit of acceptance, but in the courage to be authentic. The world doesn't need more agreeable women. It needs women who are anchored in who they are. Women who don't crumble under pressure, who don't dilute their strength to fit into fragile spaces. There's a difference between being kind and being compliant. Kindness comes from strength. Compliance comes from fear. And strong women understand that. They operate from a quiet center, calm, grounded, unshaken, even when the world around them is loud, chaotic, and full of noise. They've learned that power doesn't come from shouting to be heard. It comes from speaking when it matters and letting silence carry the rest. Presence is power. It's not something you can fake. It's something you build. It's born from years of discipline, from self-awareness, from mastering your emotions instead of being ruled by them. When a woman owns her presence, she doesn't need to assert control. She becomes control. Her composure speaks louder than her words. People notice her because she radiates certainty, not insecurity. And that kind of energy changes the dynamic in every room she walks into. There's a particular strength in the woman who doesn't react to every opinion thrown at her. She doesn't rush to defend herself because she knows who she is. She doesn't explain her decisions to people who are committed to misunderstanding her. She doesn't chase approval because she's already decided that her peace matters more than being liked. That's the energy of presence. Controlled, deliberate, unwavering. To live with presence means to operate from principle, not pressure. It means you've learned the art of stillness in a world addicted to noise. You listen more than you speak. You observe before you react. And you move with intention instead of impulse. There's confidence in restraint, in the ability to walk away, to stay silent, to not need the last word. That's not weakness. That's mastery. Because the most powerful person in any room is rarely the loudest. It's the one who doesn't flinch, doesn't waver, doesn't lose control of themselves no matter what chaos surrounds them. Presence is not about dominance. It's about alignment. It's not about being intimidating. It's about being undeniable. When you walk into a space with quiet certainty, people feel it. They sense your self-respect, your boundaries, your awareness. You don't need to perform. You don't need to compete. You simply exist in truth, and that truth commands respect without you saying a single word. That's what real confidence looks like. Not the kind that needs constant affirmation, but the kind that comes from deep inner knowing. The energy of presence is built through self-control, through knowing when to engage and when to let go. It's in the way you manage your emotions, how you choose your words, how you hold your posture, how you handle disrespect without losing grace. Strong women don't react. They respond. They understand that reaction is impulsive, but response is intentional. They choose not to give power to every provocation because they know that emotional control is the highest form of strength. And that's the beauty of presence. It's quiet, but commanding. You don't need to prove your worth. You embody it. You don't chase opportunity. Opportunity finds you. You don't seek validation. You attract respect. Because everything about you, your tone, your body language, your energy, communicates a message. I know who I am. I don't need your approval to exist fully. That's the kind of woman people remember long after she's gone. Not because she said much, but because of how she made them feel, grounded, challenged, inspired. There's a saying that people may forget your words, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. That's presence. It's not about performance. It's about impact. You leave a mark not through noise, but through consistency. You don't have to fight for space. Your authenticity creates it. When your presence carries integrity, people trust you, they listen, they pay attention, even if you never raise your voice. And here's something important. Presence isn't built overnight. It's developed through the small, disciplined choices you make daily. It's in how you handle failure, how you treat those with less power than you, how you recover from setbacks without losing your dignity. It's in how you carry yourself when no one's watching, how you speak about others, how you honor your word. That's what creates credibility, and credibility is the foundation of influence. Presence also requires emotional maturity, the ability to not take everything personally. Because the truth is, not everyone will understand you, and that's okay. Some will misjudge your calm as coldness, your boundaries as arrogance, your confidence as ego. But you'll know the difference. You'll know that your strength is not up for interpretation. You'll know that your composure doesn't mean you lack emotion. It means you've learned to channel it wisely. You've learned that self-control doesn't limit your power, it amplifies it. There's an elegance in the woman who no longer over-explains herself. She's not cold, she's focused. She's not detached, she's selective. She's intentional with her time, her energy, her conversations. She no longer pours into spaces that don't reciprocate her value. She no longer entertains people who drain her peace. Her life becomes simpler, quieter, more meaningful, not because she does less, but because she does only what aligns with her truth. Presence also means holding your ground without aggression. It's standing firm without being harsh, being assertive without losing empathy. You can be strong and kind at the same time. You can be compassionate without being naive. The key is discernment, knowing when to lean in and when to pull back, when to speak up and when to stay silent. Because presence is not about control over others, it's about control over yourself. And when you master that balance, you become unstoppable. You stop chasing opportunities, you start attracting them. People want to work with you, learn from you, follow your lead, not because you demand it, but because they trust you. They sense your discipline, your clarity, your emotional intelligence. That's the invisible power that opens doors without you knocking. A woman with presence doesn't seek attention, she commands respect. She's not busy proving she's enough, she already knows she is. And that quiet assurance radiates in everything she does. Whether she's speaking to a crowd or sitting silently in a meeting, people feel her energy. They feel her steadiness, her poise, her confidence. She doesn't need validation to know her worth, and that's exactly why she earns it naturally. The power of presence is not in perfection, it's in authenticity. It's in showing up fully as yourself, flaws and all, and still carrying grace. It's in being so rooted in your values that no circumstance, no criticism, no rejection can pull you off center. It's in knowing that your energy sets the tone for every space you enter, and choosing to make that energy one of calm confidence, not chaos. There's something magnetic about stillness in a world that's constantly rushing. The woman who's not easily rattled, not easily impressed, not easily provoked, she stands out. Because her stability is rare, her peace is power. Her calm presence is a reminder to others of what strength really looks like. Not force, not dominance, but control. Presence is legacy. It's the invisible fingerprint you leave behind on every interaction, every conversation, every space you touch. It's the standard you set without saying a word. It's how people remember you, not for what you owned or achieved, but for how you made them feel in your presence. So cultivate it, guard it, strengthen it, because your presence is your power. And once you learn to stand in it fully, you no longer need to chase respect. You become it.